Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, we are going to talk about why your body cannot heal until it feels safe. And I know this is a topic that we touch on a lot in bits and pieces. This is going to be a much longer video. We're going to get into more detail about a lot of these things and look at some ways that you can start to shift into that healing mode by showing your body how to feel safe. So let's start with the lie of willpower. So here we have force. Pushing harder rarely helps the body heal. Okay? It is not something that you can force. You cannot force your body to heal. It is a living system that is going to respond to consistency, to that slow and steady care. So when you want to make changes, we do that slowly, by going outside our window of tolerance, by going outside of our comfort zone in tiny steps. And so when we start to continuously push past what is available, what happens? We dip into tomorrow's reserves. We stir up inflammation. We disrupt our hormones. We slow down repair and even inhibit our body's ability to truly heal. So what can feel like discipline or busyness can often pull us into that survival mode when it goes unchecked. But real resilience starts to show up when our body truly feels safe, when it feels safe enough to actually repair itself, repair its cells, its tissues, its organs, organ systems, repair itself as a whole. So remember, every time you force your body to do something, you force yourself too far out of your comfort zone, too far past your limits, you are leaving less energy for your body to repair. And all of that stress triggers your hormones, triggers chemical cascades that shunt energy that could be going to healing, that could be going to repair, that could be going to your digestion, that could be going to healthier sleep, could be going to hormone balancing and nutrients, over towards that survival mode where it thinks that it has to immediately escape danger. So when we push too much, too hard, it can be easy to misread signals. And we often tend to ignore, not just misread, but ignore the signals our body is sending us. So fatigue, chronic pain, that restlessness, the anxiety, the insomnia, all of those can be labeled as weakness, but they're really signs and signals from your body that it's not okay, that it needs some extra support. So masking, sometimes we tend to pretend like everything's okay. Maybe we have to put on a face to go to an event or to go see some people, and things might look okay on the outside, right? It might look steady and like we've got everything together, but on the inside, your body's still bracing. Your nervous system is still in that fight or flight mode, or maybe fawn or freeze if you've been around our content for a while. So when we pretend to be okay, that can add more tension rather than easing it. It's a trick. It's not real, right? It's a facade. And over time, the body holds on to all of that. It also expends a lot of energy doing that. Your nervous system and your body are waiting for room to be honest. Okay? And healing starts when it feels safe enough to take off the mask, when it feels safe enough to be yourself, when it feels safe enough to speak about how you are truly feeling or what you are truly going through. Holding it in all of the time can either make you explode or implode, one or the other. When it goes unchecked, when you are not able to deal with those things properly, it can get out of hand, right? Performance takes energy, it takes effort. You can't just pretend to be okay and not expend energy or not think that it doesn't have consequences, right? If you're burning all of this fuel pretending to be okay. How many times have those of you who do have a chronic illness or who might have anxiety or be burnt out, how many times have you gone to, say, like a birthday party or a dinner or something, and you had to put on a mask and say, oh yeah, I'm good, I'm fine, everything's okay, it's great to see you too. And then by the time you get home, you completely crash, sometimes for hours, sometimes days, sometimes weeks. When we pretend to be okay, that crash can last longer. It can impact us more. We have more severe symptoms. The symptoms, we can even have more symptoms, right? So instead of just our usual 3 that our body likes to cycle through, maybe there's 6 or 8. And we have to remember that when we're masking, we're disconnecting too. That mask separates us from our own signals. We cannot read what our body is telling us. And that makes it harder to notice what our body needs, what's actually going on. So moving on to the grind. Now, the grind is something that I see in a lot of my clients, okay? And that gets praised heavily in the society that we live in today, right? The long hours, the skipped meals, constantly being busy, constantly being in motion, hustling, getting the next thing, whatever your goal is, whatever you're driving towards, and neglecting to take care of yourself or listen to your body. That gets praised in today's society, right? But the body keeps the score. It does not forget. Your subconscious mind does not forget, and it will show through your body physically over time. So your hormones go out of balance, your sleep is not reparative, restorative, your immune system gets weak over time. So on the outside, this looks like productivity, it looks like success, it looks like you're, awesome and living this incredible life that everybody wants and that everybody's jealous of. But underneath, you're burnt out, you're depleted, you're exhausted. Half the time you don't even know what day it is, and you have to rely on a calendar or reminders on your phone throughout the day constantly to get you through. And what your body needs at this point is 2 things: rhythm and rest. Instead of consistently pushing, we need to give it these gentle routines that show stability and consistency. So every time we skip meals, every time we work way too late, that leads to burnout when we continue to do it over and over again. Every now and then, okay, fine, life happens, right? But when it's every single day, it takes a toll on the body. When we're grinding every single day, when we're fatigued every single day, and we're still pushing and pushing and pushing and ignoring it, tuning out, we lose ourselves too, right? We lose our personality. We lose our joy, our peace, definitely our patience, if you see where I'm going with those. And again, we lose that connection between our brain and our body. And if that continues, what happens? At some point, your body's going to say no. It will force you to slow down through a flare-up, through a chronic illness, maybe an autoimmune disease, or through just plain old exhaustion, right? So even if you want to work or you want to hustle or you want to grind it out, your body won't let you. Denial. I cannot tell you how big of an impact this had on me when I got to the point where I was bedridden for almost a year because of this. Signals do start small, right? So maybe you do have a tight chest. Maybe you have some palpitations. Maybe you have some anxiety that pops up every now and then, or a tummy that gets upset before meetings, or you're just freaking tired all the time, right? And it can be so tempting to say, oh, it's just stress. Especially when you go to doctors and they tell you, oh, it's just stress. You just need to relax. You just need to sleep. Or you're just getting older. I hear that excuse a lot too. BS. It's not you just getting older. I don't care if you're 50. I don't care if you're 80. It's not you getting older. It's the fact that you're not listening to your body and you're not taking care of your body. And maybe you weren't taught how. But this content will help. So back to denial. Denial feels safe because it delays the inevitable, right? It delays the crash. It delays the possibility of you being alone with your thoughts, right? But your body doesn't care. Your body shifts into that survival mode. It's not just going to forget about everything that happened. It's recording everything through that subconscious mind. It's remembering everything you do, you say, you hear, you see, everything you feel, everything that goes through your senses, whether in or out. Your subconscious mind remembers, even if you cannot consciously recall it. So maybe you've been working late nights for a couple months now, and you started getting some really bad back pain. But now, 3-4 months in, you're like, oh, it's not that bad. When really it is, right? The back pain is building. The damage is building. You're tuning it out until it gets to a point where it's unbearable. Because the signal is getting stronger. Because your body's like, hey, I need help. I need rest. I cannot sit in this position very long. Or I can't do this at night for this long, whatever it may be. So a lot of the times when we see someone who not necessarily is in strong denial, but who may be a bit more stubborn in terms of, I guess stubborn's not really the word, more from the outside looking in, it looks like they are strong and resilient and determined and disciplined, right? But inside looking out, it's straight up denial, right? Because you're not listening to those signals. It's masking again, right? You're pretending to be strong. You're pretending to be resilient. You are pretending to, I don't want to say pretending to be disciplined because it is discipline, but it's kind of an overabundance because we're ignoring the body's signals, right? But what's underneath all of this is a fear of slowing down. And like I said, that can be for many reasons, but usually it's because you are afraid of silence. You are afraid of being alone with your own thoughts. You are afraid of existing in your body in silence because what happens? The symptoms get louder. The thoughts get louder. The little monsters in the back of your mind that want to tell you you're a horrible person or you can't do it or you're ugly or you're stupid or whatever get loud, right? So we get scared to slow down. But the more we continue to ignore our body's cues telling us to slow down, like I said, right here, eventually the body asks for payment. And it will. It absolutely will. And collapse is one way that it happens, right? Your body has a threshold, just like every system. There is a point where that scaffolding is going to give out. Your body is going to say, that's enough. I can't do it anymore. Your sleep sucks. Your energy sucks. You're fatigued all the time. Your symptoms are piling on, getting more intense, getting more frequent. And you just don't know what to do anymore. And you just don't feel good all of the time. And at this point, this is where I start to see people who go from doctor to doctor or nurse practitioner or therapist or nutritionist, health coach, whatever, and they're not getting answers, they're not getting results, they're getting blood work done or some kind of lab testing, and they're like, oh, you're fine, your results are normal, but you still feel terrible. That's because when you collapse, you may not necessarily be in a disease state. And when you go to a traditional Western medicine doctor, they are testing for you to be within range for a specific disease state. Okay? So yes, something is wrong. You're not crazy, right? But we have to look at it from a different perspective. Okay? So when we collapse, our body's mad. It's trying to tell you where the limit is. It's trying to tell you I can't go anymore. That's the final straw. And in the moment, take me for example, I thought it came out of nowhere. I thought, oh my God, I don't know what's happening. I'm just bedridden all of a sudden. No. In retrospect, there were many signals for many months, even years, that led up to my collapse and me being bedridden eventually. Okay? So it's tiny signals that get shown repeatedly over and over and over and over and over again, and then they get louder and continue to repeat, and louder and continue to repeat. And when we don't heal, when we don't recover, we don't shift into that rest digest mode, again, they get louder, right? Every time you skip a nap, if you need one, every time you skip an hour of sleep, you skip a meal, you skip a break at work, that is causing damage, right? Mentally, physically, chemically. And a collapse is what we talk about being the freeze state, if you're familiar with any of our content, right? And that is like your body trying to wipe the slate clean, not in terms of forgetting everything that's happening, but it's like a hard reset on a computer, right? So it's forcing it to shut down. It's forcing it to rest because you are not choosing to rest, or you don't have the opportunity to slow down and rest, right? Maybe your situation doesn't allow you to. And that's a very real thing for a lot of people, especially with the way the world is right now. But your body needs whatever amount of repair and rest you can give it when it's collapsing. Obedience. It's a hard lesson to learn sometimes. We can get caught up in schedules and rituals and plans and protocols, which can be very beneficial, right? Especially if you are someone who is searching for answers, who wants to know how to not feel like this anymore, who wants their energy back, who wants to feel healthy again, who wants to be able to sleep at night, who wants to get back to living again. But when we put too much effort in all at once, or we're trying to take too big of steps, or doing a plan that's not necessarily designed for us, it can backfire, right? So we need to look at healing in a co-creative way. Like this says right here, healing tends to begin not in blind obedience, but in partnership. We need to be in partnership with our body. If we're working with someone else, we need to be in partnership with them as well in order to know what's going on, how to fix it, and what next step we need to take. So that's why it says external guidance meets inner listening. Okay? So strict plans can make it harder to hear what your body is really asking for. When you are looking to make progress in your healing journey, recovery journey, or regardless of what type of chronic illness you have, regardless of what type of burnout, anxiety, etc., start as small as you can. Like disgustingly small. Like it's so small it seems silly. Right? So for me, when I was bedridden, I was working with an incredible coach. And I laughed at her when she said, okay, I want you to do 1 squat in the morning, 1 squat at night. And I'm like, 1 squat is a joke. That's not going to get me anywhere. What? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Before I knew it, I could do 20 in the morning, 20 at night, right? It took me a few months to get there because I was bedridden for a year and lost all my muscle mass. But what happened? I wasn't afraid to start. And when I did start, I felt good enough to continue. And they weren't too big of jumps. Before I started with that coach and I was working with a doctor, they were like, oh, just go walk for 30 minutes a day. And I'm like, I'm bedbound. I can barely get to the bathroom. Like sometimes I have to use a rolling chair or crawl. Like, what do you mean go walk for 30 minutes? Well, just go set a timer and walk for 30 minutes. That doesn't work for everyone, right? So you've got to take smaller steps that are suited for you, right? External rules can offer structure, but they risk replacing your own wisdom. Listen to your body. Like when I had that doctor telling me, oh, just go walk for 30 minutes, I had to listen to my body. Because every time I tried to do that, I couldn't get past a couple of minutes and I would crash for weeks or months. And I was working with this doctor for a little over a year. Healing deepens when you take back agency. Okay, listening inward and using outside input as support but not command. Again, we need to listen to our body, but still also co-create with whoever we're working with, if we're working with a coach or a doctor, as well as our environment, as well as all of the external stimuli and input. For example, when I was, again, bedridden, I was very sensitive to sound. So there was a point when I couldn't handle a lot of internal stimuli and I tried to fight it. I tried to fight it as long as I could. And then one day I was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. It's causing me more stress. I'm having worse palpitations. Just give me some earplugs. And what happened? I used the earplugs when I would have severe flare-ups. And that allowed me to give my body time to heal, which gave me extra time that I didn't have to wear them eventually, right? So every time I would come out of a flare-up, I would have more and more times that I didn't have to wear these because my body was getting used to everything that was going on. It was able to repair, and then it was stronger when it was faced with that external stimuli. So it's easy to tell yourself, oh, I'll just do it tomorrow. I'll just rest later. I'll just rest after the deadline, or after the kids are older, or after things settle down, after everyone calms down, right? After the party's over. But how many times does later not even arrive for you? How many times do you extend the deadline, right? You've got the moving goal post, right? That deadline just keeps moving further and further and further away every single day. And that drains you, right? And it convinces you that it's discipline that you need, or that it's motivation that you need. But you need rest, right? And I mean intentional rest. And we'll talk about that later, but there's a difference between rest and intentional rest. Like just laying there is not necessarily resting. But when you make space and you make time, your body can recover, right? So delay can feel like you're being really patient, you're taking on a lot, you're strong, you're disciplined, you've got it all together. But again, it's one of those masks, right? It's a facade. Because you're doing more damage to your body in the long run. It's steadily draining your energy. It's steadily draining your reserves. Again, it's weakening your immune system. You're going to get sick more frequently. Your body's going to heal slower. And right here, we have delay collects interest. When the body finally calls the loan, recovery takes longer than it may have if care had started sooner. The further you let your body decay, the further you let the damage go on, the inflammation, the hormonal issues, whatever autoimmune disease it is, the further you let it do the damage, the harder it's going to be to get back to a healthy state. Maintaining is significantly easier than recovering. Okay? So let's talk about shame. This is a big one too. When we do start to get into routines, typically they're a bit more rigid, or we might have, steps that are too big for us at the time. Symptoms flare up, right? We get thrown into nasty flare-ups that can last hours, days, weeks, and that shame creeps in, right? You're weak. You're never going to recover. You're a waste of space. You're lazy. You can't do it. You're not worth it. Right? You don't even deserve to exist. But that shame, those nasty thoughts, little monsters in the back of your head saying those things, none of that is going to move you towards recovery. Because every single time one of those thoughts creeps into your head and you listen to it, not just casual, oh, it popped in, it goes out, but you listen to it, it triggers that stress response. You get adrenaline released, right? When your body is in a collapsed state, what happens? It shuts down even more. You're more fatigued. You're more anxious. You're sick. Your symptoms get worse. You're more tense. You have more trigger points, more pain. Your muscles don't want to work as well. Your range of motion is lost too. And all of that can make it harder to see the progress that's happening too, right? It makes you doubt yourself. Well, I'm never going to get better. I don't deserve to get better. I can't get better. All of those things. So healing tends to grow best when we are kind to ourselves, when we have self-compassion and self-love, where mistakes are seen as signals. Okay? If we trip up, if we make a mistake, that's okay. It happens. Use that information, learn from it, apply it, move on. So much easier said than done, I know. But that's the reality of it. If you need help, there's help available. But it is that simple. Not easy, but simple. Again, shame is going to chip away at your confidence. It's going to leave you hesitant to try new things. That hope diminishes, right? You are going to feel like you can't get better. You can't improve. You can't have the life that you want. You can't heal from whatever issue you're dealing with, right? Like I always use myself as an example. Like I was bedridden. I didn't think I was going to ever heal. I was going to ever even have any kind of life again, right? And my confidence was shot. And because of that, I was scared to try anything. I was scared to try to walk more, scared to try to eat different foods because I was having allergic reactions to everything, scared to even have a conversation with someone because it would trigger symptoms, right? And so my world was getting smaller, 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 and like my hope was shrinking with that. But when I would make a mistake, I would take a step that was too big. What happens? That shame just closed in on me even more. But those setbacks were not permanent, even though the shame kept telling me it was. They're not permanent, right? So those negative thoughts are going to loop and loop and loop, and it's going to drain you. It's going to leave you feeling even worse, stirring up more symptoms. We have to interrupt it. We have to interrupt those shameful spirals and sit with it for a moment and just give ourselves compassion, okay? Because when we do that, what happens? We shift from that survival mode into that parasympathetic mode. If we do it enough times that we truly feel safe, right? The first few times it's going to be very uncomfortable. You're probably going to cry a lot. You're probably going to panic. You're probably going to have a stir up of symptoms. But over time, you start to feel safer when you do that, right? Like, oh my God, I really can sit with myself. Oh my gosh, it really is okay, right? So we want to shift over into that healing mode more and more and more through safety. So fantasy, it is easy to picture a version of yourself. And I talk about these visualization exercises a lot in our community. We go through these exercises together often too. So it's important to picture whatever you want. Picture, if you are someone who has anxiety, burnout, chronic illness, what's something you want to do that maybe you could do before but you can't do right now, right? For me, one of my fantasies or visions was sitting in the backyard under the pecan tree and having lunch and enjoying the sun and the wind and fresh air, right? And it was beautiful and it was very inspiring and it was a goal for me to work towards when I couldn't go outside. But we have to apply steps to that as well and not just have this fantasy or dream. Because if we do that, we're not going to do anything. We're just going to daydream. And it feels nice to be in that dream and not be in reality. but it's not going to do enough to fully shift our biology, to fully heal the body. It will help shift you into parasympathetic, into that healing mode. But again, we have to take steps towards our recovery, towards that goal, right? And over time, those daily practices that we have, every single step that we are taking is bringing that fantasy or that imagined version closer to you, right? Closer into your reality. So they can definitely help with the emotional pain. And I talk about how your subconscious mind, as lovely as it is, doesn't really know the difference between what you're imagining and what's really in front of you. And that's why movies scare us, right? That's why roller coasters scare us. Like consciously, we know it's fake. We know we're not going to get hurt, whatever. The man's not going to come through the screen. Subconsciously, our brain doesn't register that. And it's the same when we visualize things or fantasize about things. It gives our body a chance to shift into that healing mode, which is good. But again, get a steady routine, take those steps, make sure you are nourishing your body every single day, repeatedly, because you are going to build trust, and that trust builds safety. Okay, willpower. We talk a lot about discipline, willpower, and motivation, which can be different things, right? So willpower seems important. Push harder, keep going, don't quit. And I do think it's important. But it can be detrimental, right? It can be a very clever trap, especially for people who are type A personality, who may be overachievers, who may be empaths, who may be prone to sacrificing or keeping the peace, things like that. It will dangle healing right in front of you, but you just can't reach it, right? I'll just do one more thing and then I'll heal. One more thing, sacrifice this, sacrifice that, let go of this, right? Just keep going, just keep pushing. But it's draining you because you're taking steps that are way too big for you. So we're continuing, right? We're not pausing either. So when we pause, even if it's 5 minutes of breath work, we are offering our nervous system enough safety to reset. It gives it that moment to repair, even if it's just a few minutes, right? That adds up over time. If you're doing it 5 minutes 3 times a day, 15 minutes is going to add up week after week after week. So willpower can look like discipline, but it often drains your resources, especially when they're already low, when you're already sick, you're already not functioning well. And it's just gonna flare everything up, right? Make you feel worse. So instead of climbing upward, that cycle circles back. It's the push crash cycle, right? We push a little bit, we try a new activity, try a new food, we're trying to get our life back, we crash. Maybe it's for days, weeks, months sometimes if it's severe enough. And then what do? Before we get to a point where we are truly able to start pushing again gently, we end up pushing a little too early, right? And then it just repeats. We push and crash. So it's also important to reframe all of this, right? Healing happens when we soften the blame. Okay? Weakness isn't going to keep you stuck. It's the approach. So I don't want you to necessarily blame yourself and be like, because that's that shame monster coming back, right? Don't necessarily blame yourself because you 99% of you probably don't know any better. You probably haven't been taught how to do these things. You haven't had a proper guide, a proper teacher, someone to help you with these things. And it's a very individualized process because every body is different, every experience is different. But view it differently, change your perspective, right? Okay, constant stress doesn't usually knock you down in one blow. A very accurate statement. It wears you down slowly, okay? And that's what we said earlier. This happens over time through consistency. So you can do things that are bad for your health or negative for your body consistently, and it's going to rust your body, right? Or you can do something to kind of get rid of that rust. Maybe grease the hinges a bit, right? Slowly, steadily, every single day. So everything you're doing consistently, whether beneficial or detrimental, affects your hormones, affects your body, affects your immune system, how you respond to histamines, POTS, insulin resistance. I mean, there's a whole list of things. And it drains your energy layer by layer. And again, you may not notice it at first because, yeah, my body still works. Yeah, I can still show up to work. I can still show up to functions. I can still be there. But like, how much are you actually focusing? How much high quality work are you actually getting done? And I'm not saying this to shame you because I've been there. I'm just saying, like, think about it really. Are you able to have a clear mind and get work done? Or do you feel so bad you're sitting there barely hanging on, putting in minimal effort in terms of quality because you don't have anything left to give, right? When we are living in survival mode for so long, we are running on pure adrenaline. And that keeps our system running for a while, but it speeds up the rate at which we get sick. It speeds up the rate at how we age, how our body deteriorates, and it creeps up quietly, right? Because we're usually not paying attention to the signals. And that rust creeps in, it makes our foundations weaker, and it depletes us over time, right? Maybe back in the past, we were able to bounce back. Maybe we'd get the flu and then we'd recover in a few days, maybe a week max. And now you're so stressed out. If you do get sick and you get the flu, you're still having symptoms like long COVID, for example. Maybe for months, for years, you're still having issues from that illness, right? Your body isn't healing as fast, right? It's not moving as quickly. You're fatigued more. It's not like, oh yeah, I got some fatigue from work. I didn't sleep well the night before. It was a really long day. And then you catch up on sleep Saturday and you're fine. No, if you are stuck in that survival mode for too long, what happens? You spend extra days, weeks, sometimes months trying to catch up on sleep and rest, right? Okay, hunger. It says cells can be well fed with calories but still starving for safety. Oh my gosh, yes. So when we are in survival mode, I've already mentioned, like, our nervous system tells our body, hey, digestion's not important. We don't care. That's not our top priority right now. So when stress is high, it's going to slow down your digestion, which means more than likely, this can change, it can be very individualized, but more than likely, you are going to have constipation, which means you're going to have bloating, which means you're probably going to have heartburn with it. Okay, you're not going to be absorbing your nutrients. You'll still get a lot of calories, but you're going to be missing your vitamins, your minerals, and your mitochondria are going to struggle to create energy, and then you feel fatigued, right? So you're wired from the adrenaline, but tired because you're not making proper energy. You're running on fumes. It's like running a car on empty. It's not going to happen. I mean, you might be able to coast down the hill for a few minutes, but eventually crashes out. And I tell a lot of people, it is so important to make sure that you are getting enough food, okay? That you are getting enough calories and enough nutrition. When we are in fight or flight, food can go in, but your body doesn't always use it. So nutrients can pass through without being absorbed, which is why multivitamins might be super important in certain people's recovery programs or protocols, right? You might feel restless or jittery but you feel drained, right? That's that tired but wired, right? It's that survival energy. You're like barely hanging on, but you're like, like you've just had 6 cups of coffee, but you're just, I need sleep, right? Coffee, sugar, and sheer willpower can mimic energy, but they don't restore what cells actually need, which is calm and oxygen-rich repair. Things that are stimulants like coffee, sugar, and just willpower, just pushing past, right, are not real energy. Even certain adaptogens, right, or certain, if you take excess B vitamins, those can mimic energy. They're not real energy. Your body's not truly processing energy. It's just a fake burst that you're getting from these things, right? So what happens when we do that? You're already fatigued, you're tired, you drink a cup of coffee. Maybe you get a little burst of energy, but you're pushing past your body's limits. So then you end up crashing harder than you would have if you wouldn't have drank it in the first place. I get it. Some people feel like they can't live without coffee. Maybe they've got a meeting to go to, work to go through, some kind of responsibility. Not saying never drink coffee again. However, it can be very beneficial temporarily to limit it, or maybe go to decaf instead of full caffeine, because decaf does still have caffeine. I learned the hard way as someone who was caffeine sensitive when I was bedridden. So anyway, food for thought. I know I get a lot of hate for that, but food for thought. Okay. So it can be really easy to normalize your symptoms. So, oh, I got a migraine. It's fine. It happens all the time. Or maybe you had a gut flare up. You have chronic diarrhea. Or maybe you're just having horrible insomnia night after night after night. And maybe your doctors told you it was just stress. Or maybe your friend said, that's normal. That's just a part of life. Or maybe you told yourself that from hearing it somewhere else. I don't know where. Anywhere. And again, that can be like denial, right? You're pretending to be okay, and that can be a way of you protecting yourself. But over time, it is going to blur those lines between surviving and thriving, from just living day to day in this misery and this brain fog and this fatigue, and actually having a life that you feel like is worth living and enjoying it, right? So when we treat dysfunction as though it's normal, especially on a day-to-day basis, what happens? Our body stops, I don't want to say it stops sending signals. It can, but it's usually the signals get a little quieter. They might get a little more chaotic, or more unpredictable. For example, when I was getting to a point where I could start to walk again, I was trying to exercise more, and trying to just be more physically active, right? For a while when I would do that, I would get a lot of anxiety, a lot of palpitations, dizziness, and fatigue, and like severe muscle tension and DOMS, okay? When I started pushing past those, gently pushing past those and increasing my activity, what happened? My body started sending me more chaotic signals. My food sensitivities got worse because my body was like, hey, you need to stop. This isn't good. We don't need to go this way. Or I would start getting, oh my gosh, horrible pain in my low back, right? This was my body trying to send different types of signals for the same stress, because I wasn't listening to the original symptoms or signals. Same thing right now, right? So we can pretend that it's normal to be tired. We can pretend that it's normal to have all these mystery symptoms, and we can look real tough and strong doing it. But our body underneath is not happy, right? It's begging us for help. It's begging us to address what's happening, to make a change, to look at the root causes. And the longer that we pretend, the more it erodes our body, but also perspective, right? So that survival starts to look like you trying to be healthy. And then It can also make it harder to remember what feeling healthy really feels like, right? I cannot tell you how many people, even when I was practicing straight chiropractic, I would have patients who came in with chronic pain, right? Chronic neck pain, back pain, elbow, wrist, whatever we were adjusting. And they would not know what it felt like to not have that pain, or to have that pain severely improved because they had had it for so long, right? When you are honest with yourself, when you are honest about the symptoms that you're having, you're honest about the root cause of everything, and you're not necessarily not afraid, but brave enough to go dive into that root cause anyway, that's when you're going to start healing. That's when you're going to start seeing the way out of that nasty thicket. Okay, so energy doesn't usually disappear in dramatic crashes. It seeps away quietly. Whew. Yes, we can have energy drains with crashes, but there are so many other ways that we lose energy when we are chronically ill, burnt out, anxious. Okay. Obligations, always saying yes, right? Skipping a break if you need a break. Maybe there are people in our vicinity that we need to help take care of, and maybe we don't have the capacity to right now. Maybe we're skipping meals again, right? Maybe we're skipping on sleep. Maybe we skipped our supplements or didn't take our meds today. Maybe we didn't exercise today. Maybe we didn't drink enough water. Your life force energy requires you to take care of it, to protect it. Otherwise, it leaks, it drains. Right? For a while, that's manageable. When you start to notice what's draining your energy, when you stop giving too much to what's draining your energy while healing, then you're going to truly heal, right? You cannot heal when you're in that survival mode. We talk about that all the time. So if there are a million different things keeping you in that survival mode, you've got to get rid of some of them, at least temporarily, right? Working 3 jobs, got kids, got family members, got hobbies, got all these other responsibilities, church, groups, whatever. I don't know what all you guys do. All of that takes time. All of that takes energy. If your body is not in a state that it's healthy enough to handle all of that, you've got to cut or limit some of the stress that those things cause you, at least temporarily, while you heal. Do what you can. I know you can't completely get rid of every stressor you have. I know there's going to be some people that probably come at me in the comments. I can't get rid of my kids. I'm not telling you to get rid of your kids. But find someone that can maybe help you with your kids. If maybe you're struggling to feed them, right? Maybe working multiple jobs and you still can't make ends meet. Figure out some way. There are food banks. There are resources around you. There are churches that give, right? There is always a way. I promise you. God will make a way. If you look and keep your eyes open and you are not afraid to ask, and you are not embarrassed to take, right? You are not embarrassed to accept help, right? I promise there's always something or someone that is out there to help. I promise. Okay. So leakage, we were talking about that. Energy slips away in drips. It's not like this full rip in your energy field and then it all just starts going everywhere. There are like these little leeches that get all over you that just start sucking the life force out, right? But they matter. They may not all be taking a significant amount. But when there's like 20 of them attached, that's a lot of blood, right? It's a lot of energy, a lot of life force. So, yeah, when it comes due, there's going to be interest to pay, right? Your body is going to require interest. The shift begins when the leaks are acknowledged and gently sealed. Even little changes like saying no once or resting 10 minutes earlier can help reserves return, right? Like I said, you don't have to get rid of your kids. I'm not telling you guys to get rid of your kids, but maybe just figuring out a time when you can literally take a 10-minute nap. And I don't mean scroll on your phone for 10 minutes because you can't sleep. I mean no electronics. If you laid the kids down, if they're taking a bath, shower, whatever, if you can find 10 freaking minutes, and I know you can because your kids gotta sleep at some point, they need a shower at some point, they're gonna need to go to the bathroom, and they're gonna probably take a nap depending on their age. 10 minutes, no electronics, lay there with your eyes closed. Shifts you into that parasympathetic mode. Is that only 10 minutes a day? Yes, but that's 10 minutes a day you're spending healing your body, recovering, repairing those tissues. Okay? We got to take what we can get. Rules, routines, and constant demands can start to feel like bars in a cage. The body stays busy, it's pacing, it's thinking that more effort is the way out. Oh boy, does it. But often the door isn't even locked. It's just hidden behind the belief that pressure equals progress. Freedom usually comes not from pushing harder, but from choosing safety over performance and letting the system rest. Your healing is not going to come from you pushing and pushing and pushing. But it's not going to come from you sitting there doing nothing, right? You have to intentionally rest. Like I said a second ago, no electronics, close your eyes 10 minutes. Yes, that's lying there doing nothing. But there is a difference between doing that and doing this for those 10 minutes, even if you're laying down. Do you know the blue lights on your phone, right? The wavelength stimulates your stress response. The screen flickers, which stimulates you don't register it consciously, but it does. Stimulates your stress response. The act of you scrolling stimulates your stress response. Why? Because your eyes are scanning for everything. It's taking in a ton of information, assessing for threats, because that's what our brains do. That's 3 ways you're triggering your stress response just by looking at social media. Not to forget the negative, provocative, emotionally draining, and engaging content, right? Do you know the algorithms? A lot of the times, I don't know if it's true for every single social media app, but a lot of the algorithms in the comments will make it so that the emotionally triggering comments now show up first. Why? Because it increases engagement. Why? Because it keeps you on the app longer. But what does that do to you? It keeps you stuck in that survival mode. It keeps you stressed out. It keeps you pissed off. It keeps you upset. So you see why can't see it, this thing is so damaging to our health. I think they're very important. I think they're great in some ways. But you can see how there's a huge difference on our nervous system and in terms of healing when we spend 10 minutes scrolling versus 10 minutes with no electronics. Okay? So, when the door is not even locked at all, we need to learn to rest. Putting away a phone can be one way of resting, even if it's just 10 minutes, guys. Okay? Shifting our perspective, right? Listen to this. The exit isn't force, it is perspective. The door opens when we realize that safety and not strain is the true path forward. Safety sucks at first. It is scary at first because humans don't like change, right? We look at something safe. Take people who go through a lot of abusive relationships or very toxic relationships, whether that's friendships, marriages, whatever. Maybe you find a nice, calm person, you date them, and you're bored, and you pick fights, or you seek someone else out and dump that person because maybe they're a bit more morally gray, right? That's because even though that other person was safe, we didn't learn that kind of safety. We didn't learn what real safety was when we were kids. So we naturally gravitate towards the ones who aren't truly safe. That's more comfortable. That's what our nervous system knows. That's what's predictable for us. Even though this one over here is truly safe, right? So my point is, finding real safety, shifting into safety is terrifying when we first do it, right? Kind of like sitting with ourselves, with our own thoughts, with our own body for just a few minutes at a time. But that is the way to healing. That is your way of getting out of the thicket, the chronic illness, autoimmune disease, all of it. Okay. Is it going to cure everything 100%? No. Will it significantly improve your symptoms? Yes, because your stress response drives inflammation, which drives chronic disease. Simple as that. Okay. All right. The reality of body-held stress. So the body is a living archive. Like I said, it doesn't forget anything. Every shock, every loss, every betrayal leaves an impression in your tissues, in your cells, in your fascia, your organs, everything. So maybe your mind moved on, but your body's going to keep the score, right? So say that you lost your dad on a certain day, regardless of what day it is, you know, right? You know, I can guarantee you are going to have flare-ups around that time, whether that's gut flare-ups, migraines, anxiety, whether that is food allergies, just insomnia, right? Because your body and your subconscious mind remembers, even if you're not consciously registering like, oh, that's coming up in a few days. Your subconscious mind is registering it, right? So when we can start to notice those patterns, we see those imprints, we see what is happening in our body and our subconscious, and we see that some of these flare-ups are not really random at all, right? But they're stories that our body is trying to tell, asking to be released, actually. Right? So those symptoms can act like receipts. They are reminders that the body kept when the mind tried to throw away the memory, right? The conscious mind, not the subconscious. Your nervous system keeps a careful ledger. It's balancing every single stressor against your reserves. The math is precise even when overlooked. And then we have burial. Stress that isn't expressed doesn't vanish, it gets stored. And over time, those buried layers grow roots until the body speaks louder than silence. Like I said, stress breeds inflammation, breeds chronic disease. Okay? Stress causes diabetes. Stress causes cancer. Stress causes autoimmune disease. Right? Eating too many sweets can be a type of stressor. Okay? And I know a lot of people aren't going to want to hear that because it's very different from what they've been told. But when you get to the root cause of everything, yes, like we talk about mental, chemical, physical stressors. Okay. We can talk about that later in a different episode in more detail because I could talk about that for a long time too. Okay, so what happens? Your muscles tighten, your jaw clenches, your gut gets sick, whether it's just nauseous or it's knotted up. And then you have all of this tension that is trying to protect you, right? It's part of that survival mode. And it's trying to hold you steady in all of the chaos and all of this external stimuli that's overwhelming your nervous system. But what saved you then can keep you stuck now. So whatever the stressor, say again, going back to maybe your dad passed on a certain day during the year, and your nervous system gets triggered around that time. You don't consciously register it until maybe the day comes, right? Over time, say this was maybe 10 years ago, maybe you had developed a certain way to cope with that. Okay? Maybe it was an unhealthy way of coping. And I don't necessarily mean it had to be drinking or smoking or something that was a bit more strongly negative on the body. Maybe it was just eating more food. Maybe it was just working an extra 6 hours a day. Whatever it was, even if it was hidden behind productivity, right, or something like that, can be an unhealthy coping mechanism that's keeping you stuck right now, right? So when you're unable to take off your armor, set it aside, and truly rest, your body can't rest. It can't heal. It can't digest. It can't repair. It can't use all of those nutrients and put them to good use, right? Calming down the inflammation, balancing the hormones. So when our nervous system feels safe enough to actually soften, to let go of whatever grip it has, that's when it's going to happen. That's when everything's going to fall into place. That's when you're going to start making real progress. And I do want to say this right here. Armor doesn't resolve the fight. It freezes the body in readiness. Safe from little, but stuck in everything. We have to learn to shift out of that freeze state. And the only way we can do that is when we're ready and we surrender. Wholeheartedly. Okay? Exactly right here. It's allowing softening. We have to learn to surrender. So sometimes your nervous system stays on high alert. It scans for threats that may never come. Sounds can feel sharp. Silences can feel unsettling. Interactions like tests. Hypervigilance is survival extended too long, and it comes at a cost. So your sleep stays shallow, your digestion falters, joy feels far away. Your emotions can go numb. When we are hypervigilant, even like I said earlier, our personalities take a backseat. Our joy disappears. Things that maybe you used to enjoy, hobbies or certain people that you would hang around, or maybe you looked forward to a certain day of the week because you actually went and did something fun on that day. It's like you don't care, you're numb, right? All of that can happen because hypervigilance is prioritizing other things instead of your emotions, instead of your personality. So the alarm doesn't know the difference between a predator and a memory. Like I mentioned earlier, our subconscious mind is so freaking powerful, but it doesn't always understand the difference between what is real and what is imagined. So maybe at one point you went through a traumatic experience, okay? If you keep reliving that and thinking about it every single day, all day, you are triggering that same chemical cascade in your body, still triggering the adrenaline, still triggering the inflammation, the cortisol, all of that, okay? So like I said, we have to interrupt those thoughts. So when we learn how to calm the false alarms, we can heal. So it's kind of like thinking about your smoke alarm in your kitchen. Maybe you're in there making toast, and if you burn your toast, the alarm's going to go off. Great, that's what it's supposed to do. But what if you are going in... I'm sure you saw him fall. What if you are going into the kitchen and you open the window? You haven't even made your toast yet. You open the window and a breeze blows through and that thing goes off. There's not even any smoke blowing in. It's just some wind. False alarm, right? That's what happens with our nervous system. Sometimes when we are hypervigilant, when our nervous system is overwhelmed, it's really stressed out, we can have false alarms like that, right? So when we learn how to calm down those alarms, how to prevent the false alarms from happening in the first place, you can heal, right? Which means you're going to go to the bathroom regularly. It means your hormones are going to be better. You're going to be able to lose the weight easier. You're going to sleep better, have more energy, right? All those good things. So freeze. When stress burns for too long, the body can go cold. Numbness, fatigue, disconnection. And when I say disconnection, this is not just disconnection from your emotions. This is disconnection from everything. It can be disconnection from your loved ones, like this little guy down here. It can be disconnection from your purpose, disconnection from a higher power, disconnection from family, from friends, from work, right? From joy. All of these things. This is the dorsal vagal freeze response. We talk about this a lot on the channel too. The nervous system's last survival card. This is the last, the final thing it does, right? When you start to shut down, go into that collapse mode, that freeze state, one of the last things that happens. So that freeze is preventing you from being even more overwhelmed. Your nervous system has hit a wall. It says, hey, I can't handle anymore. We're going to shut down. So dissociation is a type of response to this freeze state, right? So people who have complex PTSD often will dissociate in the middle of a conversation if they feel like they are threatened or if they feel like they are overwhelmed and they can't handle anymore. And again, this isn't a conscious thing, but if you are someone who does deal with a lot of stress and burnout and maybe even a chronic illness, notice if when you are in a conversation with someone, if you just like zone out. You're still looking at the person, you're still having a conversation, but it's like the lights are on, nobody's home, in one ear, out the other, right? That can be you slowly slipping into that freeze state because your body needs rest, right? So it says freeze protects against overwhelm, but it also dims vitality. It flattens your emotions. It can make life feel suspended, right? You can't do the things you want to do. You feel like you have no purpose. You feel like you're lost. You're just kind of wandering around aimlessly, if you're wandering around at all. The body endures but doesn't restore. So what begins the shift is warmth, the moments of safety. Again, we have to teach our body how to feel safe, So it dulls out our entire existence, which can include pain too, right? It can even dull our pain, which is a good thing, right? That's a good thing when it comes to survival. If you maybe just got shot or something, right? Adrenaline's pumping and your body's like, hey, we don't want to feel that, let's shut down. And so it like can make it to where you don't feel that, right? Because our bodies are freaking amazing, but we don't register that because it's a very primal response. Anyway, it can feel like your life is absolutely passing you by when you're in freeze state. So, okay, fragment. Sometimes the only way to survive is to divide. One part smiles, another hides, another carries the weight. So you have a different personality when you are around different people. Maybe you speak differently around different people or in different situations. You show different emotions. You function differently at work versus when you're home alone, versus when you're with your partner, versus when you're with your family, your friends, etc. Okay? Fragmentation can keep you functioning in stress, but it leaves you feeling divided against yourself. You don't know who you truly are, right? You can feel like a fraud. You can feel fake. You can feel like you don't know yourself. What's even real anymore, right? And a lot of those things can clash, right? And that can come from heavy people-pleasing tendencies too, right? Or people with complex PTSD like to be a bit of a chameleon, right? Kind of blend in with whoever you're talking to. And I don't say that in a rude way. I say it from experience, right? Like, you want to not get noticed as much. You want to blend in. And so if you're talking to this group of people, you might do that. And then over here, you might talk a little different because you're trying to be that chameleon, because you don't want to deal with a bunch of stress. You want to keep the peace, right? You don't want to bring a bunch of attention to yourself either. So healing doesn't ask you to erase all of that, right? But it is inviting you to bring it back together, okay? So when you feel safe, when your nervous system specifically feels safe, all of those pieces can come back together and you can feel like yourself again. You can converse like yourself again confidently. But if you're over here talking to these people, you can express these points of view, but still hold your identity. And still, if they challenge you on something, you can still stand up for yourself and be like, oh, well, I agree with you guys on X, Y, and Z, but maybe not D, E, and H, whatever, right? So listen to this. Survival can split you into roles: performer, protector, prisoner. Each holds a piece, but never the whole. Those parts can disagree. When one moves forward, another can resist. Another one can shut down. The struggle feels inward instead of outward. Repair isn't about removing parts, but weaving them back together. Again, in our program, we do a lot of mind, body, and spirit work, okay? Your mind-body connection, I say spirit too. Some people get pressed about that. From me, my philosophy and my entire existence, like, you can't separate the three. Okay, you can try, but everything starts in the spirit, works its way down into the mental, and then down into the physical. And you can look at it this way if you're not someone who's a spiritual person, because this is how I see it too. Your subconscious mind versus your conscious mind versus your body. Okay? That's how I think the spirit's incorporated into that. So that's just me. But anyway, I think they're just different terms. Okay, but we have to integrate ourselves. So in our program, we do a lot of mind, body, spirit work. We do a lot of emotional regulation. We do a lot of somatic practices that help you to, and a lot of journaling exercises. We put you in the hot seat sometimes and we'll ask you questions and help you work through things to help you weave those pieces back together, right? Because when they're sitting out here floating so far apart, it can be hard to know which one to grab first, how to glue them back together. Are they going to even stick together if I try to glue them back together myself, right? So some guidance is needed in a lot of cases. Okay, so stress rarely ends cleanly. It tends to loop. Yes, adrenaline spikes, exhaustion crashes, numbness follows, and then the wheel turns again. So over time, these grooves deepen until the cycle feels like an identity. And that's where we have identities associated with our chronic illness or with a negative statement, right? I am a failure. This is my anxiety, right? And then they like latch onto us. When we identify with them, it's harder to let them go. It's harder to change. So walking tired, pushing wired, collapsing at night, all of that begins to seem like who you are. It's just a part of your personality. That's just me, right? But it's conditioning. That is not just you. That is not really who you are, right? And these patterns, regardless of how old they are, can shift because our brain is neuroplastic. We are constantly growing. We are not set in stone. Safety, those safety cues we keep talking about, can play a role and be an interruption that teaches your system a new rhythm. Okay, so neuroplasticity all happens when we feel safe and we're making new connections. We're making changes, but we have to feel safe to make those changes for those changes to stick. Each repetition carves a deeper rut, training the body to replay stress like a song on repeat. So, like I said earlier, we can either do things that are healthy for us or bad for us. Every single time we go down that pathway over and over and over again, whether it's a good habit or a bad habit, depending on how often you do it, etc. Anyway, good and bad is questionable. But regardless of whether it's good or bad, you continue to go down that pathway every single day, especially multiple times a day. That is going to be your default setting. It is not your personality. It is not your identity. That's just where you're at right now, but you can change that. You can shift that by, again, repetition, going down a different pathway every single day. So the cycle convinces you that exhaustion or anxiety are personality traits when they are really survival responses. What breaks the loop isn't more effort, it is safety. We just said that. Safety inserts a pause, giving your body a chance to choose a new script. Okay. I'm sorry, my nose is like itching so bad right now. Burden. Okay, the weight that we don't speak about doesn't vanish. It settles into the body. Our muscles tighten around unexpressed grief. Fibromyalgia, guys and gals, that is you. The gut strains under swallowed words. IBS people. The skin reacts to emotions that get pushed underground. Unprocessed stress doesn't dissolve, it hardens. And over time, it can show up as pain, inflammation, and autoimmunity. You don't just manifest some autoimmune disease out of nowhere, okay? It is, it's embedded in your genetic code. Some stressor comes along, activates that gene, turns it on, it expresses itself, and then bam, you're getting symptoms. So with that being said, you reduce your stress and inflammation, what happens? You're going to downregulate that gene, which may not completely turn it off, okay? It may not completely turn it off, but it should improve your symptoms. Okay. This is overload, right? Healing often comes not from adding more, but from gently releasing what was never ours to carry in the first place. When we are constantly saying no, when we are constantly taking on someone else's responsibilities, me, for example, I was always like the overachiever, top of my class, we would get into a group project. I'd be like, I want an A, I want good grades. And then everyone else would be like, I just want to pass and get this over with. And I'm like, I need an A. Like, come on, what do you mean? And then everyone would do like bare minimum work, and I'd be like working overtime to make sure that it was A material, right? And there's a lot of people out there like that who want to be high achieving. Totally okay. Nothing wrong with that. However, when we are constantly doing other people's work, we are constantly saying yes to other people, they get used to that. And then what happens? They expect us to do more and more and more and more and more until we finally collapse. Our bodies were not designed to carry all of that weight. Our brains were not designed to carry all of that weight, not long term. And what happens? Resentment builds, anger builds, frustration, shame, guilt, all of these things. So what isn't voiced, because a lot of the times people don't speak up when we are in that state, what isn't voiced often gets stored. Each unshed tear or silenced truth can feel like another stone added to the body's load. Stress held on too long starts to harden. From a chiropractic perspective, or probably a PT perspective as well, when we have trigger points that are in the muscle area for too long, what happens? That stuff spreads, right? That's how you get frozen shoulder. You've got all these painful trigger points. You don't deal with it. What happens? It just gets worse, right? It gets even more stiff, even more painful. This can show up as tight muscles, burning joints, and flare-ups in your gut. Okay, repair begins when we start to set things down. This is why therapy can be so important, or even just a good friend, or even praying about things and just talking to God about things, right? Healing asks less for more effort and more for letting go of burdens that nobody was built to hold alone. There's a scripture that I'm thinking of that I can't think of what it is. Maybe someone in the comments will know. But it's about carrying each other's burdens or something like that. Fantastic. However, that is meant to be a balanced thing, right? It's not meant to say, hey, you just carry all my dead weight and I'm just going to sit here and do nothing. Not how that works, right? Like, we're supposed to care about each other, help each other, not just offload. Okay? Because somebody's got to pay for that, right? The truth is that stress lives in the body, not just in the thoughts or in your memories, but here in the present moment, in your breath, in your pulse, in your cells. Okay? We usually cannot outthink it. We can't outrun it. Until this is acknowledged, supplements, therapies, and practices just skim the surface. You can take all the medications you want, all the supplements you want, adaptogens, tinctures, homeopathic remedies. I don't care. You are not going to get better and heal if you don't get to the root cause. If you don't get to the root cause of where the stress is coming from, right? How many people are on thyroid medications for life because they're not getting to the root cause? They're just supplementing with synthetic hormones. A lot. Same with diabetics, right? Your mental state influences your organs, okay? That is, some people might not agree with it. I do, but I also study alternative medicine, so, but anyway, we cannot outrun a chronic illness. Okay, we have to face it, or it's just going to get worse, and then we rely on the system and have to take medications. And again, those medications don't fix the problem. It's a Band-Aid solution. And I'm not crapping on medications. There are people that need medications. Okay. However, I am saying medications often get overprescribed. That's my opinion. So, opinion. Again, safety is not just helpful. That is the switch that lets the body reset. I'm going to say it every single day, because you have to understand, if you don't feel safe, you're not going to heal. Okay. When that switch flips, that is when you heal. When you are able to switch from that survival mode into that rest and digest, I'm telling you, magical things will happen. Incredible miracles will happen. I've seen it. I've helped coach people. I've had patients. I've done it myself for my own body. I'm telling you, crazy things happen when you thought nothing would ever get better. So, stress shows up in your hormones. Think about a cortisol test, right? We run cortisol tests. They can tell you a lot about what kind of stressed state you're in. The same with your digestion. We can run lab tests on your gut health. That can tell you a lot about your digestion and stress, right? It moves through every cell, every tissue, organ, and system in your body when you are stressed. Okay. Safety is not a luxury. I know it seems like that in this day and age because the world is so unpredictable right now. And safety does seem like a luxury. But there are still ways that we can insert safety into our daily life that is essential, that's doable. But again, it's different for everyone, right? Okay, so the safety switch signal. The body doesn't shift because of pep talks or logic. Okay, you listening to this is not going to fix your body. You applying the things you're learning here will help. You listening to this, if it helps you feel safe, yes, it's going to help you. Applying these things, creating that safety, best option. It shifts because of signals. A slower breath, softening your gaze, steadying your heartbeat. These are the biological cues that say you are safe now. Without those, even the best supplements or even affirmations are not going to land. So think of signals as passwords, small, repeatable actions that are unlocking your healing, your repair. So the body listens to biology. It speaks in hormones and chemical messengers and electrical signals, there we go, in slowing down your breath, right? In the tone of someone's voice, in someone's body language, or facial cues. That primal part of our brain does not understand English, Spanish, French, ASL. Like, it doesn't matter. It does not speak that kind of language. It wants signals. Biology. You cannot talk your way out of survival. So you have to feel safe, translate into feeling. So healing doesn't begin when we earn it. And I see a lot of people who think, and it's not a conscious thought, it's a subconscious thought. They don't think they're deserving of healing. They don't think they're deserving of recovering and having the life they want or the life that they dream of or whatever. The body cannot shift into repair while it is being criticized, because that criticism is stress, right? So when you are criticizing your body for being tired, for being heavy, for being slow, again, it's signaling the stress response. You're getting all those hormones releasing again, building inflammation. So giving yourself permission. This is what we call well, that's not the same thing. Radical acceptance is big too. But giving yourself permission can feel radical in a culture that glorifies hustle. So just do it. Just give yourself permission, which I know if you're a type A personality and you always have a super busy, full schedule, it can be hard to take time out of your day. I know. It's not easy, but it's simple, right? Start with 5 minutes, 5-minute break. If that's too much, start with 30 seconds. Okay. What did we say at the very beginning of today's lesson? We said, make it so simple you can't fail, right? So easy you can't fail. Like with the 1 squat in the morning, 1 squat at night. So rest is medicine. It is not weakness, guys. Even 1 moment of guilt-free stillness, pardon my child, can flip that switch from that survival mode into that rest and digest, okay, which helps your body repair. So permission can feel scary. It can feel rebellious. It can feel like you're doing the wrong thing. It can give you anxiety and maybe even stir up symptoms. But that's often what your body needs. It's what it's been waiting for, what it's been craving. It's just afraid to go there because it's unfamiliar. So a single active allowance, maybe a 5-minute nap, 30-minute nap, pausing for a few minutes, taking a deep breath, all of these things can soften tension and lower stress chemistry, which is what we want. Again, lowering the stress chemistry takes you from fight or flight into rest, digest, and heal. So without giving ourselves permission, even self-care turns into a performance, right? Keeping the body on guard instead of healing. So if your self-care routine is very rigid, you never miss a beat, but it's not feeling like rest, it's probably because it's not truly rest. It's another chore for you to check off your list. You don't feel safe when you do it. It's just a part of your routine and it's stressing you out more. And that is not to say don't take care of yourself. That is not to say self-care days or routines are unimportant. They are very important. But if that self-care routine is getting to a point where it feels like a chore and not a luxury or not rest, I think it's probably time to reevaluate that and see what you could do differently. Maybe that's less time. Maybe it's doing it on a different day. Maybe it's spreading it out onto different days of the week. Who knows? So strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it looks like unclenching your jaw, doing the EFT videos with us every day, resting a hand over your heart, or letting out a deep sigh. These are micro moments of softness, okay? I call them micro moments of safety in the program. They are not weakness. They are instructions, okay, for your nervous system. These are those safety cues that we've been talking about. They tell your nervous system, hey, stand down, we're safe. These false alarms that keep going off, we don't need that. We're good. Everything's good. Thank you for trying to protect me, but we got it. We can take it from here. So one quiet act of softness can do more for healing than 100 acts of force. So softness is communication. That is a safety signal, right? So small gestures tell the body it can rest. Pressure breeds resistance. Softness dissolves it. So what's the cure to pressure? Softness. What force cannot unlock, gentleness usually can. Softness is a signal of return. The body follows it instinctively, like moving toward a familiar, safe presence. Ooh, environment's a good one too. Okay, so our surroundings, we talked earlier about all of the external stimuli that comes into our nervous system through all of our senses, right? So our surroundings shape us more than we realize, okay? A cluttered corner, like right now, these books are honestly driving my type A personality nuts because they're not straight. But that truly like stresses me out, okay? So a cluttered corner can signal to your nervous system that that's chaos. We need to be prepared. We're stressed, right? Constant noise can signal threat. Conflict in the air can raise your cortisol levels. It can increase those stress hormones. If you're listening to stressful music, watching stressful TV, scrolling on stressful stuff on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, whatever, they capture our attention because that's their purpose, to keep you on the platform. But they trigger our stress hormones. Okay? So if you start to, this is an exercise for you, actually. The next time you catch yourself doing something for longer than you anticipated, I don't care if it's scrolling, if it's watching a movie, or stuck watching an advertisement when you were walking by, whatever. Sit there for a second with yourself and ask, am I safe here? Do I feel safe consuming this? And see what your body says. Okay? So simple shifts like softer light. This can be red light filter or blue light filters, clearing a space, like decluttering, quieter rooms, quieter environments. All of these can become conditions where your body can finally relax and finally rest and repair. So your environment reflects inward. I know a lot of people talk about your house, your car, your bedroom, whatever is like a reflection of your mind and your insides, right? Like if you have a cluttered mind, you have a cluttered house or whatever. I do believe that's very true. However, your environment also reflects inward, right? It goes both ways. So if you are in a cluttered environment, what happens? It also causes you a lot of stress and anxiety, right? So mess outside often stirs restlessness inside, while order can steady our nervous system. Safety isn't a single candle or a quiet hour. It is consistency. We talked about this, guys. We have to show our nervous system consistently every single day. Tiny cues of safety. It doesn't even have to be the same cue, but you build these routines and have little breaks throughout your day that tell your nervous system, I'm safe, it's okay, calm down the false alarms. And it gives your body just a few minutes of healing spread out throughout your day, right? Okay, so healing doesn't usually arrive in a sprint. It shows up in cycles. So rest, digest, sleep, restore. Again and again. And we do this every single day. So that consistency, yes, it sends safety cues, but how does it do that? Because it builds trust. Trust and safety is the language of our nervous system, and that is how it learns to settle, to calm, to feel that stability to its fullest extent. So a single night of good sleep can feel incredible, especially if you've had no sleep and you have insomnia. Believe me, 8 months of it, and I was getting maybe 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night, and it was very broken sleep. When you get even one night of good sleep, that can feel incredible. When you've had insomnia for a long time and you get like a week or a month of good sleep every single night, that's a whole new world. Like, you didn't even know how good it felt. Like, you're just like, what is this? I didn't know I could even get this kind of sleep. I didn't even know I could feel this good. So when we consistently build good habits and help our body to nurture itself and to repair itself, and we're starting to improve our sleep, again, that consistency can do wonderful things, right? It starts to rewire those patterns. Our body has an easier time falling asleep. It has an easier time staying asleep. It knows what to expect, when to expect it. So the hormones start to elevate and decrease respectively at certain times of the day so that you get good sleep. So rhythm is how the body begins to believe that the danger has passed. Healing moves in circles, not in straight lines. This is something that I have to tell every single patient, every single client. You are not going to just exponentially heal. You are going to have ups and downs. That's just the way that it is. I have never seen anyone, and I know I will never see anyone who has a straight linear healing. It's just not possible. So 2 minutes of breathing before emails can be a simple way to start to de-stress and downshift your nervous system. Dimming the lights an hour before bed. Banning electronics from, your eyes for like 30 minutes to an hour before bed. Taking a daily walk. Every single meal is a good way to help with stress and insulin resistance. So like if you have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, go for a 2 to 5 minute walk. It doesn't have to be 30 minutes to an hour. Every time you eat, 2 to 5 minutes is enough. Research shows that is enough to start influencing insulin resistance. Okay. Rhythm also teaches reliability, right? So your nervous system relaxes when cues of safety keep showing up in the same way. That consistency, that stability, it knows what to expect. Your hormones start to run on these rhythms. Oh, connection is a good one too. So isolation like solitary confinement, for example, isolation triggers our stress response. It signals danger. While connection, being around people who are safe, being around people who understand, or at least are open to hearing our story, hearing what we're going through, etc., can signal safety. And that's why I talk a lot about co-regulation. So our community is we spend a lot of time on connectedness, on co-regulation. So our nervous systems were designed for this co-regulation word, right? For this steady presence of other people. When we are in the presence of people who feel safe, who are also healing, who are understanding, who are kind, who are compassionate, people who aren't going to negatively talk down to us while we're going through healing, recovery phase, whatever. when we consistently engage in those kinds of communities, it triggers a safety signal. So that's why I say when you guys do the EFT videos every day, when you are participating in the comments, when you show up to these really long videos like this, thank God that you're still here hanging out, it triggers safety for you, right? Because you're co-regulating with us here. So healing alone can feel fragile. Together, it usually feels stronger. Even small doses like sharing a meal with someone, a short conversation, a supportive text, even a hug or a hand on your shoulder can shift the body towards repair, shift it towards that rest and digest and heal. So connection isn't just comfort. It is how our biology is wired. We repair best when someone safe is nearby. I have seen such a surge in autoimmune diseases, in chronic illnesses since COVID. And I do think that there are multiple reasons for this. However, I do think a big part of it is because we are so disconnected, right? We are so disconnected post-COVID. We're chronically online, not talking to people, just consuming content, but not really engaging back and forth with people. We are heavily disconnecting from friends, family, loved ones, communities, from public communities. So I'm thinking like church groups or like sports or like youth events and things like that. Like even within like a family unit living in the same house, there's so much disconnect post-COVID now because again, people are chronically online. And that's not to say everybody is, but I do see a big difference post-COVID. So anyway, yeah, so question for you, and you can put this in the comments if you feel comfortable. Is there someone that you can think of just off the top of your head when you sit with them, when you have a conversation with them, when you hear their voice or you hear them talking, or you're just around them, you notice your heart rate slow down, or you notice your muscles finally relax, or maybe your jaw isn't as tense or you're not clenching your fists. And then I want you to conversely think, is there anyone that comes to mind that I do the opposite? As soon as I hear them, I see them, someone talks about them, I get really tense and like ready to fight or ready to run, get really stressed out. Something to think about. Yeah, connection multiplies safety. Alone it flickers, together it grows. Shared safety is magnified safety. And this is why I say the one thing that I was missing in my healing journey when I was going from bedridden to now to like thriving and having a life. Like as a doctor, I understood a lot of what was going on. I knew what to do, but I didn't have that community aspect. And so once I was able to be around other people who were also healing and who could listen and like knew what I was going through, I was exponentially healing. Like it was crazy. Like within the first month I went to the DMV. And I know that sounds probably silly to some people, but I was bedridden. I had not been out at a grocery store. I hadn't been at the post office. Like I had not left my house and gone into any establishment in almost a year. And then I went to the DMV, like in the first month of like being able to communicate with other people who were struggling with the same thing. But I have to emphasize, when we are communicating with other people, co-regulation can go two ways. If you are talking to people who are constantly very negative, who say, I'm never going to get better, you're never going to get better, there's no cure for this disease, etc., you're never going to get better. Because you've made up your mind. Like it's just your body will stay in a chronically stressed state, which will suppress your immune system further, which will suppress your body's ability to heal. That's just how it is, right? So you can choose to be around those types of people and let that, that kind of energy will just multiply. Okay. Or you can choose to be around people who are more positive, uplifting, hopeful, and moving forward, right? Like when you can see people who are making the steps actively, that's a much better option than sitting with people who are not recovering, have no hope for recovery, and just want to sit and complain about their illness. And I know that kind of sounds like a harsh take, but coming from someone who had been there, I had been in both types of communities. When I tell you, like, when I was talking to the people who weren't getting any better, I felt like crap. I felt hopeless. I was super depressed. My symptoms were worse. And I wasn't making any progress, and I was stuck in bed, like not watching TV. I couldn't watch TV, couldn't listen to audiobooks, couldn't have conversations hardly. And I would like text on my phone occasionally throughout the day, very rarely, because I couldn't even look at a screen hardly. So anyway, my point is try to avoid that if you can. Presence. So safety cannot be saved for later. It is felt in the now. Not once the bills are paid, not once the plan is perfect, but in this breath, in this moment, in this heartbeat. So no matter what is going on, if you choose to give your nervous system safety cues in the present moment, that is one of the most important things you can do. Okay? So the nervous system doesn't run on timelines, it runs on sensations. Presence brings repair into reach by returning attention into this moment. So again, healing happens now. It is not something you can't heal in the past, you can't heal in the future. It happens right now. So you have to be in the present moment, letting go of the worries of the future, letting go of the depression or upset or worries about the past. So you have to really be here, like be with your body, be with your thoughts. And that's why meditation can be such a profound part of your recovery journey. Because it's painful. If you're the type of person who always pays attention to everyone else, whether that's you comparing yourself to someone else, whether that's you taking care of everyone else, whether that's you being jealous or looking up to everyone else and shaming yourself behind closed doors, doesn't matter. When you are focused on that external world and not looking inward and not nurturing yourself or caring about yourself at all, what do you think's going to happen? You're going to burn out. You're going to get sick, right? You're not going to heal. Your body doesn't know how to heal properly. Like, that innate intelligence is trying, but it's failing. We have to be in the present moment, listening to our inner thoughts, present with our body and what it is feeling, which is scary. I know. Been there. Still there. Still can be scary some days. So presence interrupts survival mode. Again, that's one way you can do a safety cue, right? Is meditation is a form of presence. It cuts through rumination and worry, offering the body proof that safety exists. Healing usually doesn't flip on halfway. And I talk about this a lot when I talk about that fight or flight mode versus the parasympathetic, right? It's an on-off switch. There's no dial, okay? It's either turned on or turned off. And healing is the same. I mean, healing is that parasympathetic mode, so it's either on or off. So the body tends to wait until enough signals of safety stack up. It has to feel safe enough to turn that switch on into safety. So you can touch moments of calm, do some little self-care throughout your day, dabble in rest, even if it's like just a 5 to 10 minute nap. But if survival still outweighs all of the safety, the switch is going to stay off. You've got those scales. They've got to be balanced. Life is all about balance. That's why I don't like saying there's really good and bad, right? Unhealthy and healthy, right? There are some things I think that are just innately bad and there's not really any good in them. But I think that's more so an opinion. But again, life's all about balance, right? So if you have a stressor, try to balance it out with something that kind of takes a load off of your nervous system, right? So it's all about accumulation. Each gentle breath, each softened jaw, each evening routine all adds weight until the body finally believes and it turns on that safety switch. And it says, hey, it's okay. I can let go. Hey, I'm safe. Everything's going to be okay. And when that moment comes, healing doesn't drip in slowly, it often rushes forward. Healing often begins at a line. Until then, the body conserves energy for defense. So a single night of rest may not tip it, but a string of nights might. So maybe you've had a lot of health issues. Maybe you haven't been sleeping well. And then maybe you start getting some good quality sleep and then start feeling good all of a sudden. That's what happened with me. Like when I started making a lot of progress in my recovery and I started actually getting sleep more than just a couple of hours. And it sounds silly, but I was getting like 5 hours of sleep in the beginning, like not in the beginning, but when I was making progress, I got to a point where I was getting about 5 hours of sleep, which still isn't enough, but it was a lot more than I was used to. I would wake up in the morning and have all this energy, and I would like start trying to clean the house, and like at 5 or 6 in the morning, and I'm like, who am I? Who is this? Where is all of this energy coming from? You know, you feel like a totally different person when you finally start to get those little glimpses of healing. So healing often begins at a line. Until then, the body conserves energy for defense, right? So it's usually trying to fight things off rather than heal. Safety builds little by little. Again, we need that consistency. So you can do 2 minutes of box breathing. Again, you can dim your lights before bed. You can choose to say no instead of saying yes to everything, instead of having all of these obligations pile up on your plate. Because we have those scales, which will eventually turn something on or turn something off. And if you have enough weight on that safety scale, it's going to turn it on and turn this off, turn the survival mode off. Okay. So the mechanics of repair. Here we have hormones first. So we did talk about how survival mode, when you're chronically stuck in it, it can dysregulate your hormones. So let's talk about this a little more. So safety can reshape your chemistry. Cortisol eases down, so it starts to balance. Your adrenaline settles, and suddenly the body has access again to melatonin, which means you're going to sleep. Oxytocin, you're going to connect to your loved ones. You're going to feel love again and have that intimacy. And growth hormone. These are the quiet builders, the ones that help you sleep, mend tissues, and feel connected. Stress often locks them away, rationed for later. You cannot force hormones into balance, but you can create the conditions where balance returns naturally. So think of hormones as repair crews. Your melatonin deepens your sleep. Melatonin is what allows you to fall asleep at night and stay asleep. So it elevates at night. If your hormones are disrupted, cortisol is increasing at night. Cortisol suppresses your melatonin. So you're going to have high cortisol at night, low melatonin, which means you're not going to get any freaking sleep. Okay? Just some perspective. Growth hormone patches tissues. Oxytocin softens stress and strengthens connection. Stress closes the doors which let cortisol and adrenaline run the show. The builders wait until calm signals them. The builders wait until calm signals. The builders wait until calm. Why can I not read this guy? The builders wait until calm signals tell them it is safe to come back. Okay. Balance doesn't respond to force. It usually emerges when safety is felt consistently. So again, dimming the lights or exhale, like practicing some breathing exercises before bed or some meditations. Cells. Your cells are not static. They are living, breathing beings in your body. Okay. They make you up, right? Like they're the little parts of you. They are always working. They are always repairing DNA. They are recycling damaged parts. They are stitching new tissues together. But when the body senses a threat, that quiet construction halts. So energy gets pulled into survival instead of renewal. Safety is what flips that switch back on. So again, your cells are not sitting here replicating properly. They are not recycling those damaged parts properly, all the broken DNA, etc. If you are stuck in survival mode, that leads to inflammation. It leads to buildup of toxins and all of these damaged cells. What does that lead to? Cancer. That leads to chronic disease. Pardon my cat who's playing playing with something over here. Anyway. So when we are able to shift into that parasympathetic, they can function properly. So cells act like tireless engineers, patching and rebuilding, unless stress shreds the plans. So in survival, construction freezes. The body won't invest in repair if it thinks it needs to run. So safety presses play. Cells resume their quiet labor, clearing, stitching, regenerating like the blueprint was waiting the entire time. So digestion, huge when it comes to healing, when it comes to autoimmune conditions. IBS is super tied to anxiety. I see it all the time. So people who have different types of IBS often are stuck in that sympathetic state. So the gut is a gateway. No matter how nutrient dense the meal or how expensive the supplement, digestion stalls if the nervous system is in fight or flight. Stress pulls blood away, slows the enzyme production, which enzymes are what actually break down your food when you eat them, and make eating feel like a battle instead of nourishment. So safety can reopen the flow, bringing circulation back, calming the gut lining, so calming the inflammation, helping repair that leaky gut and stuff, balancing candida, and let the nutrients land where they belong. Speaking of candida, something else I see in patients or clients who tend to be sympathetic dominant, because things are not moving properly, because they're typically dealing with constipation and backup, they usually have candida overgrowth and or SIBO. That's another video. I've already been talking way too long. For you guys that are still here, I commend you for listening this far in. So stress can shut down the gut, shut down digestion in seconds. Your gut goes offline. Your meals are not metabolizing. They're not digesting. You're not getting your nutrients. They're just kind of sitting there to rot in your stomach. Even with perfect food, the body can still starve on a cellular level when survival mode runs the show. Again, because if you are in that sympathetic state, you're in that fight or flight, your cells aren't getting the nutrition they need, because calories don't necessarily mean nutrition. You can see that when you think about processed foods versus whole foods, okay? A Snickers bar has a lot of calories. An apple has calories. But which one has nutrition? Right? That Snicker bar is going to give you, I have no idea, maybe 300 calories, I'm guessing. An apple can give you, 90? But that apple is going to have nutrients in it that this doesn't have because it's junk, right? It's just empty calories, what we call it. Anyway, so even if you're eating healthy foods though, if your body's not pulling the nutrients out of the food that you're eating because it's stuck in that fight or flight mode, you might as well be eating a Snickers bar at that point. So deep breathing exercises before eating, even if you want to journal before, meditate before, pray before your meals, all of that can calm your system, ground you, help shift into that parasympathetic mode so that when you do eat, you're digesting your food properly. You're getting those enzymes pumping and flowing so that they can break down the proteins, the fats, and the carbs and pull out the nutrients from those. Immunity. So your immune system can be a defender or a healer, okay? Or is both a defender and a healer. It can play the good guy or the bad guy though, right? So in safety, when we're in that parasympathetic mode, our immune system works with precision, okay? It is patrolling, it is looking for foreign invaders, it is clearing debris and toxins, it's sealing up wounds. When we are stuck in that sympathetic state, what happens? We're stressed out, our immune system doesn't work properly, the calibration is wobbly, right? And sometimes it can dial down too far, which leaves you vulnerable and you're chronically sick. You're catching every bug that goes around the kids' schools. You're catching flus, stomach bugs, everything known to man. But for some people, or in some cases, maybe that immune system is overreactive. And then it's attacking itself, which is where you get autoimmune disease, right? So it's attacking your own cells and tissues. And this is why burnout often comes with chronic illness end with flare-ups. So you see people, and there are multiple studies that have been done where students are testing, right? And they're all getting sick. They're all getting colds, flus, whatever, some bug going around, because they're also stressed out by midterms or finals. They're catching these bugs easier because their immune system is suppressed. Okay. Let's see, circulation. So blood is the body's delivery system. This is how your nutrients get into your cells, get around and get into the cells. So in survival mode, we talked about blood rushing away from this area, the abdomen, the chest, and goes into the arms and legs because it is preparing for you to run from whatever threat it is, to fight the bear, whatever. So it pulls blood flow away from your gut, away from repair, from healing, from rest. And again, that's useful if you are being chased by a bear. But when that is consistently happening, when you're chronically stressed and your circulation is constantly pulled out to your arms and your legs, and it's not shunting back to the body, that can be problematic, right? Your inner systems are going underfed. Your cells, your tissues, your organs that are all in this chest and abdominal cavity are not getting the nutrients that they need, right? So in order to heal, we have to bring blood back to those vital organs, oxygen back to these vital organs, nutrients to your gut, to your brain, your nervous system, all these tissues in here. Safety is what tells your body, hey, blood, we can go back in these areas. So again, under stress, circulation gets shifted outward. Inner organs are quietly waiting while the body gears up for flight that rarely comes, right? Because our primal parts of our brain are stuck thinking like our ancestors many generations ago, because technology and our way of living has progressed so much faster than our bodies can keep up with. So it becomes chronic, the tissues dry out, your metabolism slows because you're not getting proper nutrients, your healing slows, vitality and energy just feels empty. You feel exhausted, you feel drained, you feel like you can't go, right? So, but safety reverses all of this. All right, we have mitochondria. You may remember this as the powerhouse of the cell. If you remember that from junior high school, probably college. So these are the tiny engines in your cells. They help turn things into energy, right? But they are responsive. So in chaos, they can sputter, they can overproduce free radicals, which again, inflammation, damage to the body, damage to the cells and tissues, cancer, etc. In calm, in that parasympathetic state, they steady, they relax, they are clean, or they are cleaning, right? They're creating clean energy, stable fuel that keeps you going without spikes and crashes. But we have to remember, energy doesn't come from pushing harder. It comes from creating conditions where these little engines feel safe enough to work properly, to function appropriately. So that mitochondria, those cells that are in your body, read the environment, okay? They get input from other cells, from chemicals in the body, etc. They get all this input, and if they feel the environment is stressful, they're not going to work right? So they need that safety and calm too in order to provide energy for your body. Safety creates steady power. Energy lasts instead of swinging between highs and crashes. Inflammation. Now, we've kind of touched on this a little bit. Inflammation is your body's alarm system, okay? It calls for repair when something is wrong. Now, it's not like the OG alarm, right? It is a part of your stress response, right? So your adrenaline, cortisol, and all that gets triggered through part of the brain that says, hey, there's a threat. And then the inflammation cascade kicks in. But inflammation is what repairs damage, right? So the problem is when stress keeps that alarm stuck in the on position, right? Because there's no dial, it's either on or off. Instead of quieting, it smolders. It wears down joints, it irritates the gut, it inflames the skin. So you think about things like rheumatoid arthritis. Think about things like leaky gut or candida or SIBO. Think about gut permeability is tied to a vast array of autoimmune diseases. I mean, there's plenty of literature that is showing that. Which I know correlation doesn't equal causation. I understand, but the evidence is growing, and I'm on that train. So that's just me, though. Okay, safety doesn't erase inflammation, but it does tell the body the danger has passed. It tells the body that you can calm down. And what does that do? Helps you shift into that parasympathetic mode, which helps energy move towards healing and defense. So instead of your inflammatory response being overstressed and either super overworking and giving you an autoimmune disease, or super underworking and keeping you sick all the time with viruses and bacterial infections, it's balanced, right? It's healing those cuts quickly. It's healing those bruises quickly. You're not getting sick even though your kid's sick or your mom's sick or your dad's sick or whatever, or your best friend or your partner. And if you do get sick, it only lasts a few days to a week, right? It's not something that is chronic and dragging out for months. So again, inflammation is very useful at first. It is how the body mobilizes repair systems. But when we are stressed for a long time, that alarm never shuts off. Chronic inflammation is going to erode the body over time. It damages cells and tissues. It leaves you in chronic pain, chronic inflammation, all these mystery symptoms, and fatigued. You cannot function well when you have high inflammation. Okay. Again, safety calms all that down. So flow. Healing doesn't come from force, okay? It returns like water finding its way back to the riverbed. When your nervous system feels safe, circulation opens up, oxygen and nutrients move freely, your body picks up its natural rhythm again. That repair is not manufactured, it is restored. Flow is what happens when the alarms are finally quieting down. So, again, we have to understand that healing, it is a very flowy process. We have to kind of roll with it. Because sometimes you are going to have flare-ups. You are going to have some setbacks that come. You're going to have some symptoms that come and go. When we really lean into that natural flow of what our hormones are trying to do, what our body is trying to do naturally on its own, while we're removing stressors, the body can do some incredible things. It can repair a lot on its own without forcing it. So, but again, we have to remove the stress while allowing things to flow. Okay, so boundaries. Boundaries are super important. We've already touched on this with some people pleasing, with trauma. We touched on trauma as well. Not being able to say no. Okay, saying no is not selfish. Saying no is healthy. It is medicine for you sometimes. Every time that you say yes out of obligation, your body gets mad. How many times have you said yes and immediately regretted it and you were like, I can't take that back. Why can't I take that back? And it just flew out of your mouth. You didn't even have a chance to think. It just came out of your mouth. Yeah. And then you did the thing that you said yes to, and then you felt terrible physically afterwards. Maybe you had to sleep for several days, rest for several days, couldn't hardly get out of bed. Learn to say no, set boundaries. I know that's, again, easier said than done, but remember, refusal isn't rejection. It is clarity. It is choosing alignment over depletion and survival over performance. We talked about performance being very draining, wearing those masks, pretending to blend in like a little chameleon. All of that can stress your body more, keep you stuck in that fight or flight mode, and drain your energy and damage things even more. So saying no can be healthy, right? No can feel like a dose of protection, right? Every time you say no, that can preserve energy for repair instead of spending it on an obligation. A simple no can cut through confusion. It marks the edges of what feels safe and sustainable. And when no is not spoken, the body will speak for you, okay? It will speak instead through symptoms that demand rest. And this doesn't mean you have to say no to everything, right? But for people who tend to have burnout, anxiety, chronic illnesses, we tend to be people who don't know how to say no properly, who don't know how to set healthy boundaries. So learning to say no I don't want to tell you should. If it were me, I'd say it's high on my priority list, right? I like to tell other people, I try not to say should, but it should be high on your priority list if you want to get better. I mean, it's one of those things. It really is. So distance. Some people don't just stress us out. They change our chemistry. Maybe you've heard about, well, let's leave that out. Never mind. So one tense conversation, one glance, and cortisol rises. Okay, your digestion then stalls, calm disappears, blood flows out to the extremities. Your body sees this as danger. Okay, choosing distance isn't avoidable, it is protection. Just like you wouldn't drink something toxic and call it loyalty, you don't have to keep harmful energy in your system. Friends, family, coworkers, classmates, I don't care who it is in your whatever group you're in. If it's someone who stresses you out, that is elevating your cortisol, and that is going to slow down your recovery. That just is what it is, right? If anything that's pumping out extra cortisol is going to slow you down. And that doesn't mean that you have to be away from that person forever, but maybe take a little extra time away from that person or that situation. Allow your body to recover and repair and heal some more. And then when you feel ready, you can kind of dip your toes in the water and send a text or an email or something before you go full on and hang out with them for a weekend or whatever. That's if you want to go back. Just saying. Because there can be some really stressful, toxic relationships that might be better off just done with. Anyway. So stressful interactions ripple through the nervous system, sending danger signals long after the moment has passed. Staying close to toxic energy is like taking small sips of poison, slow erosion that adds up over time. Distance protects your inner ecosystem, giving your body space to repair instead of react. All right, containment. We cannot carry everything. We cannot carry the whole world. So taking on everyone else's stress is not compassion. We talked about burdens earlier, but I want to emphasize here that it is not compassion to carry everyone else's burdens. Okay? Helping other people, being there for them is very kind and very compassionate, and I think we need that in the world. But when you carry everybody's baggage, baby, that's too much. That's too much for one person. Give it to Jesus, okay? That is overload. That's going to burn you out faster than anything. Your nervous system can only metabolize so much before it buckles. Containment says, their storm is not mine to hold. When you keep what is yours and release what isn't, your body can focus on repair. So if you are someone who naturally takes on the whole world, maybe you've got the savior complex or martyr complex or something, I don't know. But you're always trying to save everybody. Take a step back for just 2 minutes and sit with that thought. Sit with that thought. What if I don't keep what's not mine? What if I release what isn't mine? Just sit with it. Me telling you that's probably uncomfortable enough, but sitting with it will, keep pushing you in the right direction, yeah? All right, so absorbing others' chaos feels noble, but it weighs on the body like smoke filling the lungs. Containment draws a line saying, hey, this belongs to me, that belongs to them, and it keeps your system steady. Space opens up when you stop carrying what isn't yours. This space, that space is where repair can begin. And I want to say one more thing before we move on to truth. When you've been this kind of person for a long time, when this has been your default setting to take on everyone else's emotions, feelings, responsibilities, they're listening to their complaints constantly. Maybe you're the good friend that just listens to everybody. And you're, oh my God, you're such a great listener. You should be a therapist. Been told that a million times. You guys know what I'm talking about. In the very, very beginning, and maybe I should have said this earlier, it's not necessarily about saying, hey, what if I release what's not mine? And hey, what if I keep what is mine? Because when you've been doing that for so long, do you even know who you are anymore? Do you even know what is yours versus what is somebody else's emotions or somebody else's baggage or somebody else's something, right? So for some of you, it might be better to think about naming your own feelings and emotions, or learning to distinguish what is your energy, your responsibility, your whatever from somebody else's. And then being like, you know, it's okay for me to let this go. It's okay for me to let go of their guilt that you were carrying for 15 years, that you had no business carrying, because it wasn't yours to begin with. Okay, truth. Every time we override what we need, the body takes note. So a smile when tears want to come, a yes when we long to say no, a performance when what we really need is pause. Each ignored truth becomes a small wound, quiet but draining. Honoring the truth is not selfish, it is repair. Sometimes truth is the cut that clears what festers so that healing can finally take root. So again, your body keeps the score. It keeps record. Your subconscious mind remembers everything. Every time you lie to yourself or lie to someone else, your body logs it. Yeah, I'm fine. Body logs it. Okay? And it will it will give you signals telling you over and over again, stronger and stronger, I'm not okay. So, denying what's real feels small in the moment, but it drains energy and thins your hope over time. Truth may sting at first, but it makes space, removing what blocks repair. Space. So stillness is not laziness. Okay, that is oxygen. That is room to breathe. So if you are keeping your schedule super packed, you are staying busy 24/7, your home, your car, whatever, your workspace is very cluttered, even constant noise. Like if you sit and you cannot be in a silent room, you always have to have TV playing, music playing, listening to someone else's conversation, on the phone with someone, whatever, that can suffocate your nervous system and keep you stuck in that sympathetic mode. Even though it might feel comfortable because you don't have to sit with your thoughts or something, it's triggering stress response, elevating cortisol, because you're not giving your nervous system time to breathe. Healing needs room. It needs expansion, okay? Not more compression. So empty space isn't wasted, it's medicine. In silence or solitude, your body can finally breathe. It can finally exhale. In space, the nervous system remembers what safety actually feels like. So it is nourishing. So the best thing you can do in this case, if this is something you feel like could be beneficial for you, try to, again, schedule some breaks in your day. Maybe that's some breathing exercises, 5 to 10 minutes. Maybe it's 5 to 10 minute walks scheduled throughout your day. Maybe it's just breaking up your schedule. Like if you got a block schedule from 7 to 7 with not a single break, that's going to be rough on your nervous system. Even if you just like throw in like a 10 minute, 20 minute break somewhere in there. Okay, detachment. So holding on to what harms us keeps the body locked in defense. Habits, relationships, identities, if they corrode peace, they tether us to survival mode. Again, it flips that switch on immediately. Letting go isn't weakness, it is courage. Detachment clears space for renewal. Healing rarely begins when we are gripping tighter. It begins with release. Something else we have to think about with detachment is, A, what are you holding on to? B, what's holding on to you? Because there are things and people that can hold on to you and attach to you a lot tighter than you holding on. However, sometimes it can be your responsibility to step up and kind of cut the cord there, so to speak, and remove that attachment in whatever way seems fit. All right, protection. So boundaries aren't rigid walls. They are more like living membranes, right? Everything is breathing, living, flowing. So why do we live in such a stiff, structured society? Strong enough to block what harms, but soft enough to let in what heals. Protection isn't about cutting yourself off. It is about filtering what reaches you. So when you do have protection, your body doesn't have to absorb every single demand, every single sharp word, every single expectation. It can finally choose what nourishes and sets aside what depletes. So protection becomes the container that lets repair actually hold. Protection doesn't isolate, it clarifies. What comes in supports you, what doesn't is gently kept out. With protection, you step back into authority over your inner world. Chaos outside doesn't have to take root inside. Energy stays with you. What you give is chosen and not drained. What you keep is preserved and not stolen. Okay, line. Sometimes healing starts the moment that you draw a line. Maybe that's a pause, a limit, a quiet but firm, not this time, not yet. Maybe no. Without that line, your body stays in constant negotiation, right? It's exhausted, it's depleted, it's uneasy. With that line drawn in the sand, safety has a place to grow. You have a place to start. Energy can come back. Drawing that line is not harsh. It is not selfish. It is you taking care of yourself, okay? Many of us find that every true season of repair carries this moment, the quiet decision that the war stops here. So again, you drawing the line in the sand is you saying, hey, I'm not doing this anymore. Hey, I can't keep doing this. Hey, I'm not going any further. This defines the ground where your healing is protected, and you need to protect your safety, protect your peace, and protect your healing, because that is the only way your body's going to recover in any capacity. Practice though, right? You cannot just do this once and think that it's over, right? You have got to draw the line, hold the line, keep doing it over and over again. As you grow, as your life changes, as you're progressing in recovery, as you're recovering from burnout, whatever it may be. Okay, then we can start to eliminate the leaks. We talked about energy leaks and stuff, right? So scrolling, endless scrolling can quietly drain your presence, right? It prevents you from being here in the present moment. We talked about how important that is for your nervous system to stay in the rest and digest mode. You have to be present. So leaving the nervous system buzzing but unsatisfied, that is what scrolling on social media is going to get you, even on blogs and stuff. It feels like a break, but it's often not true rest. We went through an example of this. It's a dopamine loop that keeps your brain chasing novelty. So hours later, it's common to feel hollow, jittery, or scattered. Scrolling isn't always neutral. Sometimes it takes the very clarity and calm that your body needs to heal. So it can look like rest, but it's not really rest. It's triggering a lot of stress response, right? It's overstimulating your nervous system. Yeah, the same with noise. So when you are constantly getting notifications from your computer, your laptop, your phone, your tablet, TV, whatever, I don't know. Maybe you even have two phones, one's for work, one's personal. You're constantly getting notifications from every app known to man, pings, alerts, background noise, music playing, whatever. Whew. That's a lot, right? That's, again, keeping your nervous system overstimulated. It's registering every noise you hear as an interruption. So why do you have ADHD? Because you're giving yourself all these interruptions 24/7, right? Like, how is anyone supposed to stay focused in that? You're overstimulated. And I really think that's why ADHD is on the rise. I think it's one reason. Don't come at me, because I know somebody will. I do think that's why ADHD is on the rise, though, is because we are constantly living in overstimulated environments that we were never meant to be in. And what does that do? It shortens our attention span. Now, I do think in a lot of cases we can regain that to an extent with effort, time, consistency. But anyway, we need silence. Okay, we need a moment of silence every single day, because again, that signals safety to our nervous system, where we can shift into that repair mode, where we can settle into that stillness. We're in the present moment. We're with our thoughts, with our body. We're listening. It's like, hey, body, listen, I know you've been through a lot today. What do you need? What can I get you? Right? What's going on? Talk to me. And that's the thing too. Every single notification can either give you a hit of dopamine or cortisol, really. Depending on, is it a good one? Are you excited? Or is it a bad one? You're mad, stressed, anxious, right? And it's constantly begging for your attention, keeping you scattered. So again, obligation. We've talked about this too. Saying yes when the body wants to say no. That's draining you, okay? We've talked about that. We're going to move on. Clutter. So piles of paper, crowded closets, unfinished tasks can even be cluttered. If you've got a to-do list a mile long and you just keep adding on to it but never checking anything off of it, that gets exhausting, right? And your nervous system freaks out. It's like, hey, I want to check off everything on this to-do list because we just naturally want to, right? Like that's part of our reward system. We don't like having things unresolved. So when we have a clear space, when our to-do list gets completed, we feel good, we feel safe, we feel like everything's okay. So it's not necessarily like decluttering for appearance sake, it's decluttering for safety's sake, right? For healing's sake, so that your nervous system feels okay and it feels safe. And you can shift into that parasympathetic mode. Yeah, see, clutter isn't always neutral. To the body, it can read as low-level danger because each pile whispers, I'm unfinished, right? Sugar. Okay, sugar is very important too. So your blood sugar plays a role in cortisol, in your stress response, sleep, all these things. So if your blood sugar is not stable, if it's constantly this roller coaster, it's up and down, I don't care if you have diabetes, insulin resistance, if you haven't been diagnosed with either, whatever. If your blood sugar is up and down, it's not just about diet because it is going to influence all of your hormones. It's going to influence how your body functions, your energy, everything, your whole chemistry, okay? Every time it spikes and crashes, it mimics survival mode. So what happens? It spikes, it crashes, your body says, hey, it's an emergency. Let's release this cortisol and adrenaline. We need to bring our blood sugar up. And then your body thinks that it's going to starve if it doesn't, or it is starving, right? And so it starts packing on a bunch of weight. It starts making you feel fatigued. All the inflammation rises. Ugh, right? You feel horrible. You feel emotional. You can have mood swings. You don't sleep. You're waking up 2 to 4 a.m. every day. So if your blood sugar isn't regulated, it can feel like chaos. So once we get that regulated through diet, lifestyle changes, supplements, whatever you need specifically, back over into parasympathetic healing, right? And that's why I think like the simplest thing I can tell you here, balanced meals throughout your day. Try, again, this changes, take it with a grain of salt. This is generic advice. It's a starting point for you to do your own research unless you want to sign on with us. Keep it in an 8-hour eating window. Try not to fast for more than 14 hours. Fats, proteins, carbs, fiber at every meal, every snack you have. Do not eat naked carbs. Don't just eat a carb by itself. Don't eat an apple by itself. Pair it with some cheese. Pair it with almond butter, peanut butter, whatever. Some kind of protein. All that slows down the way your body metabolizes carbs. Comparison. Okay, so measuring yourself against others triggers scarcity signals. What does that do? That triggers your nervous system response, right? It triggers that sympathetic mode. So your nervous system registers that as danger. It says, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough energy. I am not enough. There's not enough progress. I'm not making enough progress. I'm not worthy. I'm not valuable. I'm not smart enough, pretty enough, whatever enough, right? I'm not enough, or I don't have enough, or I don't do enough. Comparison isn't just mental, it is biochemical. Again, when we have thoughts like this, every single one, as frustrating as it is, what does it do? It stimulates cortisol. It stimulates the stress response. You get the dopamine dipping and you just feel like crap, right? Repair grows in the opposite soil, where sufficiency is recognized and safety feels abundant. Okay, comparison tricks your biology into thinking resources are slipping away even when they're not. The chemistry shifts, cortisol goes up, dopamine goes down, stress registers where calm could be. When you release comparison, your body can breathe. It says, I am enough, I have enough. Okay, suppression. So emotions. When we do not express our emotions, they don't disappear. Okay, they get bottled up in our body. They settle into different areas. And that can be through many different ways, right? So I think we did touch on this earlier, so I'm going to briefly go over this. Suppression can feel like strength in the moment, but over time it acts more like pressure building in a sealed container. So healing usually begins when expression is allowed, but when the body no longer has to carry what the mind refused to release. And this is why therapy can be very powerful if you have, a good therapist that knows what they're doing. So again, suppressed emotions don't resolve, they linger, they add more stress, they keep that fight or flight mode on. You can't heal, you can't repair. So self-expression is important. That's my point there. We talked about energy leaks. That's it, guys. We're done. Well, so again, we've talked about a lot today, but I think I've touched on a lot of these things. I'll briefly cover, this is how you repair your nervous system, how you heal your body naturally, like not heal your body, but shift into the healing mode so it does it itself, right? So let's cover these real quick. So safety rituals, boundaries, safety cues every single day, releasing stored stress, creating environments that you can heal in. Okay. Safety rituals. What does that look like? Find daily routines that aren't too overstimulating for you, but that help you relieve stress. Okay. Nighttime routines, gentle, simple ones. Maybe that's taking a bath at a certain time, turning on low lights at a certain time, avoiding electronics 30 minutes to an hour before bed, no TV, nothing, reading a book before bed. Simple. But it trains your melatonin to rise at night and your cortisol to lower, so you fall asleep faster, easier, and you wake up on time naturally, right? Boundaries. Learn to say no. That is the biggest one. Learn to say no, learn to set boundaries, learn to stand up for yourself. Signaling calm daily. Again, giving your body safety cues, taking care of it, eating consistent healthy meals, walking outside a few times, getting natural light exposure, exercise. All of these things are so fantastic for shifting out of sympathetic into rest and digest. Release stored stress, okay? Physically, verbally, shake, cry, write, breathe. Therapy is a good way to do this. Walking, running if you can do it, that's fantastic. Finding a hobby, maybe that's playing music, maybe that's art. You can release stress in a whole lot of different ways that are healthy. But the point there is to avoid storing all the emotions, avoid storing all the stress. Because physical symptoms manifest, right? Like physical symptoms manifest when you do not release stored stress appropriately and often enough if you're taking a lot in. Choose environments that heal. Again, letting go of toxic connections, at least temporarily, or distancing yourself, making sure your environment is not super cluttered, making sure the lights are appropriate, making sure that you have quiet time, etc. All can give you room and space to heal. So this has been, I was shooting for 45 minutes to an hour. If you were here through the entire thing, I love you. God bless you. You are beautiful. I hope this gives you all of the information you need to start healing, because it definitely does give you the information that you need to make some progress for sure. Again, it all goes back to safety, right? It all goes back to safety. So if you do need any help, if you have any questions, feel free to drop those in the comments. You can shoot me an email, whatever you want to do. Find me on social media. And I'll answer those as soon as I can. So thanks again for being incredible and being here.